All right, got my tire fixed, filled up with air on my way. It's karaoke sales trip number 1. So I stacked some firewood for someone yesterday, just a small firewood job. I'd rather do that all day than go to one restaurant and offer my services as a KJ. Yeah, I can run a competent show. I do not enjoy selling. It's totally unnerving. Now, I went to one restaurant in town where I live. I don't think he's gonna go for it anyways. I went several weeks ago. And knowing that fact that there was no harm done, I just shook the man's hand and introduced myself and gave him a card. So if you ever want to do karaoke, call me. Like, I know that it's not a big deal, but there is something about the autistic brain that I learned is apparently the amygdala, which processes emotion, and the prefrontal cortex, which is the rational part of the brain, they don't talk to each other in a normal way, the way a neurotypical person does. So it's for this reason that, like a lot of neurotypical people, you can say, look, this didn't hurt you, therefore there's no reason to be afraid. And so your brain takes it in, the rational part transmits that to regulate the other part, and then, oh yeah, that's right, doesn't bother me anymore. And it's also how a lot of people can lie to themselves about situations where they're feeling bad, so they lie to themselves and they feel better. Yeah, neurotypical people are notorious, at least to me. I don't know if anyone else notices it. Neurotypical people are notorious for believing comfortable lies. I have a hard time with little harmless white lies. So my girlfriend wanted to make a donation to a local fundraiser for something in the name of my karaoke, and the reasoning was the person was asking for business donations, and so if this person just wanted business donations, I'm like, okay, I'll allow it, but the person revised the post and will take donations from anybody. I'm like, good, then delete that and tell them it's from you, because I was willing to endure that little white lie that drove me absolutely bonkers. Like I said, okay, we can do it, and then I went to go mow some grass for my other side gig, and it was on my mind the whole time. I started getting angry. I'm like, I can't believe I allowed a little lie, because I'm not the one doing this. Like, I don't make any money on karaoke. I don't make a profit. I'm not successful. I'm a loser. And if there's a substantive donation based in my name, then I feel wrong about that. It says something. It communicates a degree of success and prosperity that is not true. I don't have the money to donate for that. Now I'm actually going to do the music. I'm going to set up my music. I'm going to do the music for the fundraiser. I'll be the MC, but I'm not donating the money. All right, just make it very clear. I'm not picking on my girlfriend. I was upset with myself for even just considering that lie. I should have said, look, why don't you ask the person if they'll take personal donations? I'm not proud of myself. Like, I'm really hard on myself right now. And I rationalized it at first. I'm like, well, if the only way to get a fundraiser for these people in need was to allow a donation in my name, then in the name of my karaoke, then I'll allow it. But it drove me absolutely batshit because it's a lie. I can't live with lies. It drives me absolutely bonkers. And I've lived with them before. I've told whoppers, and I've lived with it, and it ripped me apart for weeks or months at a time. And then it's one of those things where confessing the lie would cause more damage than the lie itself. The lie didn't cause any damage. It damaged me. It damaged my soul. When you lie, you murder part of the world. And I know that's a quote from Excalibur. But I still believe it. You definitely murder part of me. Every time I lie, I murder part of myself. If there's any sin against yourself, it's definitely when you lie. So, and I think part of that's due to my autistic obsession with keeping data and facts in order. I don't think it makes me virtuous. I'm not a virtuous person. I'm just saying that that particular evil is one I struggle to commit, because when I do, it just tears me apart.
Turn left onto New Hampshire 114 North.
There are lies I've told in the past that to this day still haunt me, and there's no point in going back and trying to confess them, because the people involved probably don't give a shit, and if they did, all it did was rip open an old wound. You know, there's I'll never feel better, and there's more important than feeling better is not causing harm to others. So if I got to live with the pain of a lie I told, then I have to live with it. That's my punishment. That's my burden to bear. I'm trying to get across this damn intersection. There's so much freaking traffic right now. A lot of freaking traffic for a rural community.
Continue on New Hampshire 114 North for 9 miles.
And, you know, like I said in my earlier videos about, you know, how I turned out, that was the title, how I became a karaoke KJ. I'm doing this not because I think I'm going to get any hits. I would like to get some hits. I really would. I would like to get something regular, even once a month. Once a month here, once a month there, it'd be nice. I'm doing it so I can say I did it. That way, if anyone looks at me and says, why didn't you just get some more karaoke? I'm like, well, here you go. I went to all these places, and I made a sincere effort, and I failed. So you can stop hassling me. So when I go work night shift, full time, and I have no time for friends, I have no time for family, I have no time for girlfriends or anything like that, then, you know, I can tell them to go, you know, eat a dick. So here's my blueberry flavored nicotine electric dick. Oh. So, on that subject, this is the stream of consciousness. So on the subject of these, you know, I love vapes. So I was smoking for a while, but when I started mowing, I realized that my lungs just can't handle all the tar. You know, I wasn't smoking a lot. I was having maybe 4 cigarettes a day. It's still too much, and I'm sure the nicotine isn't great. So I switched from that to this, so I wouldn't be inhaling the tar. But you get a different buzz from this because it absorbs really fast. And it hits you hard. The first, if you're in the right frame of mind, it's an absolutely amazing high. It really is, but it's short-lived. It's, 30 seconds, and then it's gone. And then the brain gets used to it. So after 4 or 5 of those, like, the rest is just done out of habit. There's no point. So really, I should be rationing that to, like, guess what? 1 in the morning with my morning coffee, get in the right mental headspace, take a hit, feel good. It's great. I mean, the buzz from this feels like when you're on a date with a woman you're just getting to know and you're about to kiss her. That pleasant, positive anxiety and anticipation and just delight, and you're really excited, and just feeling her fingertips touch your hand or something just makes you that's just. Yeah, it's that feeling. It's like the feeling of intense infatuation. And especially after if you have a beer and you got just the right buzz going, not drunk, just you're starting to fall into that slightly buzz state, and then you get in the right headspace and do that, it's a force multiplier. It's absolutely great. Now, cigarettes do the same thing. Smoke a cigarette at the right time, but you don't have the taste of tar fouling up the situation, of tobacco and tar. I'm not a big fan of it. I used to make my own cloves. I liked cloves when I was younger, but the sale of clove cigarettes was banned, and then clove little cigars was banned. The Dijon Black cloves, they were great. They crackle and pop, and they burn really slow, and they're just delicious. Anyway, moving along. I'm really just dreading this. And I know it's probably going to go fine. And of course, people say people are going to pick up on your anxiety. Well, yeah, they will. They don't respond to me when I'm feeling good in a positive way, and they don't always respond bad when I'm feeling bad. So this is totally unpredictable for me. Because when I'm feeling good, I'm very silly, and my joyful behaviors are they're atypical. They confuse people, and they get weirded out, but they also feel threatened if they know that I'm anxious. So, at the same time, I don't get a positive response from the good things, and I don't necessarily get a bad response when I'm feeling poorly. So, I just have to go in, and I just have to accept it. I know I have high rejection sensitivity. That's a real thing. And people say, well, the key to that is just go out and get rejected a bunch of times. It doesn't help. It doesn't help. It always feels crushing. I wish it didn't. I think that's partially because I have depression, and everything just feels heavier than it should. A little setback. I think I mentioned in an earlier video, if I so much as drop a pen or something, it's like I feel crushed. Every setback feels a lot heavier than it should. And it's just something I gotta live with. I mean, there's no way out of it. So speaking of setbacks, I'm gonna talk about a little bit of I guess you might call it self-sabotage, or it could be that I was perceiving something I couldn't put my finger on. So when I was 21, so this is back in 2001, I was taking Visual Basic programming classes, and there was a series of classes offered by one of our local community colleges to get your MCSD, Microsoft Certified Solutions Developer Certificate. And there was 5 classes, I believe. Intro, I can't remember what the other ones were. But there's 5 classes. I wish I could remember the names of them, but I don't. I remember doesn't matter. Okay, so my introduction to Visual Basic class was taught by a guy who was a programmer, and he was doing education on the side. And he was so impressed with my code, the cleanliness and the efficiency of my code, he asked me to interview with his company so I could get an entry-level, a junior programmer position. And I naively thought, well, if I do that, I'm going to be stuck making, $8 an hour the rest of my life. I was already making $8 an hour at the time. Actually, I was making more than that. I was making I think I got up to $10 an hour as a data entry person. Huh. Anyway, that was 2001. That was pretty good. I don't want to be stuck in entry-level work the rest of my life doing entry-level coding, so I turned him down. And he didn't understand. He was baffled. He's like, do you have an opportunity here? I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be stuck. I want to get my certification first, then I'll get a job. Then I'll get myself a good job. I totally overlooked the fact that if I got on board with a junior level programmer, they'd probably pay for my education. They'd pay for me to learn additional stuff, probably expand out of Visual Basic, learn some Java or C or whatever. I blew it. I didn't understand the situation, and I chose to stick with what was stable. I'm in school. I don't want to take another job right now. That kind of disruption I didn't know how to handle. I think that's what was going on. But also there might have been a question of self-sabotage. I was dating a girl who was just fucked in the head. I was a loser. I was pathetic. I didn't know how to handle life. I really didn't. It sucked. I also didn't know I was on the spectrum either. If I did, maybe I would learn to cope better and understand the world better. Like if I could go back in time and tell myself, like, dude, a buddy of mine who thought, I think you're autistic. I'm like, nah, I'm not autistic. If I understood the Spurg, that was a Spurg, that was a big old juicy Asperger, then I could learn to adapt and deal with life better than I did. But in any case, I turned down a programming job because I wanted to finish my education. Now, I didn't finish my education because when I got to the final class, some sort of design theory class, I forget what it was. I had this teacher who had Tourette's. Now, I have Tourette's. And her verbal tics were so bad that she could hardly finish a sentence without interrupting herself with blurting out some random word. Well, it wasn't random. There was a few words that she would blurt out, and she'd get hung up on. You know, maybe she also was a Spurg and had Tourette's too. These things are often comorbid. Big old autiste. And I couldn't focus because she couldn't. I didn't understand what the fuck she was talking about. Like, what are we supposed to learn here? Well, where's the practical application? She couldn't finish a sentence. I'm like, I'm done. And I dropped out. And I told him, like, I can't understand what she's saying. She has a verbal tic that's so bad I can't follow class. I said, I'll just finish my studies at home. I had the books. And so I set up, I had a Windows NT on one computer, and I had Windows 2000 or 98 or something on another computer, and I was trying to self-educate. And I passed the first MCSD exam, I forget what it was. And it did help that we had teachers that were kind enough to give us the transcenders. They copied the transcenders and gave them to us. And so it wasn't just a question of knowing the material, but also being able to memorize the questions, take practice tests. If you don't know what a transcender is, it's basically the people who went out and took these computer course exams. And then they would go back and relay the questions to a company, and then they'd make practice exams based on those. So you can get good at passing them. Now I had another snag in my training there because the third course we took was about distributed applications. So you have the user experience. You might have like a thin client, and then you'd have a middleware, and then you'd have the data server. So we were learning to use Microsoft Transaction Server, and we couldn't make it run in class. It kept crashing. Every time when you create another instance of whatever functions we were using, it just wouldn't work. I don't remember the terminology anymore. All I remember is that Microsoft Transaction Server was crap, proprietary middleware. And we would have been better off just learning how to write our own middleware, how to handle multiple users and communicate between the thin client and the middleware and the server, the SQL server. So frustrating. And I know I had an NT machine at home. My father gave me his NT machine, and so I used that, and I couldn't get it running at home either. I was stuck. Like all this, I spent. And my dad helped subsidize my schooling the first few classes. They were $2,000 a class, and he gave me $1,000. He paid half. It was really kind of him. But I spent thousands of dollars on education that went nowhere. A real bummer. It's a real disappointment. And all the time I had a girlfriend who was, borderline, bipolar, just, and I was, not a very functional person. I adored this woman, but damn, I sucked as a human being. I really did. I was not a very good at handling life. I can only handle one thing at a time. I could either be work, and I'm like, I just want to go back to work. So I went to school later I went back to school for HVAC, and I'm not mechanically inclined at all. I'm like, oh shit, well, I want to marry this girl, even though, like, everything was going wrong with her. I thought, well, if I just get myself a decent job, then maybe things will work better. HVAC, people make decent money. There's always demand for tradespeople. And I suck. I couldn't flare a piece of copper and tubing if my life depended on it. And also my girlfriend dumped me, which I don't blame her. She thought I was pathetic, and she was right. And also, she was nuts. You can both be nuts and right at the same time. So I dropped out of school because I just sucked. I was crushed by the breakup, and I'm not mechanically inclined. And I also begin to think, when my student advisor at the community college says, well, why don't you, switch to computers and start doing computer classes because you seem to be good with computers. And my instinct was, well, what's left to program anymore? When I got to see that the electronic web was like a sticky web, like a trap, that going forward, software development is going to be largely about creating something for people to be totally dependent upon and trapped in at the same time. For every good thing, there was a bad thing to go with it. And look where we are now, where everything's surveilled, everything's tracked, everything's cataloged. It's about political manipulation on one level. It's about profit gouging on another level. It's about reducing humanity to, kind of dumb, instinctual creatures from never was. Human beings were never gloriously intelligent, but I remember talking to my father. He's like, well, you can help write software to help people live more freely. Because, my dad, ever the salesman, he used to work with a sales team. He wasn't a direct salesman, but he used to work with a sales team. He knew how to try to couch things in terms that made sense to the listener, If I was interested in pornography, it would have said, oh, you help set up new pornographic websites. You'll love it. Or if I wanted to sell toys, like, oh, you can make a toy website. But in that case, I was concerned about personal liberty, and so we couched it in that terms. Refer to an earlier video of mine about salesmanship. You know how I feel about that. So I stopped pursuing computers altogether, and I just worked. And I worked at a temp agency, and I worked weekends as a janitor. And I've done the weekend janitor thing more than once. And ended up being an exterminator. And I thought, here we go. I can be an exterminator. This is something I can wrap I can sink my claws into. I could wrap my mind around. And I did it really well. I was a total nerd for bugs for the longest time. Well, 3 years, but 3 years might as well have been 10. I was that much into it. And everything always felt wrong. I ended up doing immoral things as an exterminator. In fact, I never said a dishonest thing on the job ever until I became an exterminator. And I look at my life since then. It seems like the only way that I know of to function in this world, you have to do evil in the process of doing good. Everything's tainted. Like I'm getting near a destination. Let's see here. Nope, a little bit longer. It brings me back to when my girlfriend wanted to make a donation to this fundraiser in the name of my karaoke business. Put that in quotes because I'm not going anywhere with it. I was willing to endure that little white lie so that the money could go to help people, and it drove me absolutely nuts. And between working as an exterminator and the few dishonest things I've done between then and now, I don't think I could survive and function in this world properly. I can't prosper in this world without being dishonest. There we go. I can't prosper. I have to be poor. There's nothing glorious about being poor. It's not noble to be poor. But, like, the money is in doing dirty shit. The money's doing dishonest shit. The money's in laying traps for people to walk into. I mean, people totally depend on the internet now. I mean, you think, well, you can still do paper records. Yeah, but look at the market now. You have these tablet devices which serve as writing paper now. Like, how's there even a market for that? Like, look, this is your writing paper now, electronic paper. I get it. It's like the pads from Star Trek: The Next Generation. People would write on electronic pads, and it makes sense if you're on a starship. You can only have so. Well, I don't know. I mean, you could write on paper, but you could replicate all the paper you wanted. But oh gosh, you write on electronic pads, and now we have electronic pads for writing now. They have electric typewriters now that aren't like actual typewriters. They're just computers with a screen. Like, avoid distractions of the internet. Just type on this one-function machine. Like, well, we used to have one-function machines. Now they're back again. Interesting. The electronics are a trap. As much as they can be a tool, they are a tool, but they're also a trap. And I could have had a career programming, helping to prosper personally while helping to create this electronic trap. The electronics don't have to be a trap, but they are functioning as a trap. Just as artificial intelligence, in the hands of the right person, it can serve as a force multiplier of your creativity. But for a lot of people, it's just going to make them stupid. They're not going to use certain parts of their brain. They're just going to ask for answers without going through the normal intellectual process of figuring things out. I remember I had a teacher in the 4th grade that was worried about me didn't want me using calculators. Like, no, don't calculators. You need to learn to do things in your head. I'm like, okay, but we're adding multiple columns of numbers here. Like, it's easier to use a calculator. Once you can do arithmetic by hand, it just makes sense to use a calculator. You understand the concept. You can always go back to doing it by hand. I still add things up by hand from time to time as needed. But I get it. You know, they want you to have a permanent crutch because you can't calculate. And I have as a gentleman at one of the local stores, he always plays this math game when you pay for something. Like, how much change you getting? How much change you getting? You humor him. He's like, the kids in school, they don't know this, they can't do it. You should be proficient at it. But yeah, if you do hundreds of transactions a day, that's a skill you're exercising and you get good at it. But if you're not making money transactions every day, you're not gonna be very good at it. You have a skill that kind of falls asleep, like riding a bicycle. Some say you never forget how. I've forgotten multiple times and I've relearned multiple times. And even now, the last time I tried riding a bike was a year ago, and I was trying to get my legs in shape, and just my knees are so fucking bad. They're so terrible. I couldn't do it. And I also just had horrible balance. I never got my balance back. Maybe if I worked at it, if I kept riding 3 hours a day, 7 days a week, eventually I get my balance back. Okay, I might. The question, what's the return on the investment? What's the return on the investment, me going out to sell karaoke? Probably zero. I'm probably just losing money on this trip. I'm wearing out my old car here, using up gas, using up money that I barely have. And I'm not saying woe is me, all right? None of this is woe is me. I've chosen the life I've chosen, right? I've had good experiences and I've had a lot of bad experiences. I've done good things and I've done bad things. And I've learned a lot of hard lessons I might not have learned had I been a well-adjusted neurotypical person who just followed whatever script he was conditioned to do. I know the people who know me, when they finally see this, they're going to go, oh my God, I can't believe Steve talks like this. I'm like, well, you know what? I am generally a very kind, sweet, loving, gentle person. I am. And the difference between me and you is that you vent some of your anxiety by just being a little bit harsh all the time. That's your edge. And I don't do that. I don't take my troubles and take them out on other people. You know, I have a friend that lives right near here. I should stop in and say hi. No, mission first. I can procrastinate, but procrastinating's it's bad. Let's get it over with. Let's get the mission over with. I'm just rambling now.
Continue on Bradford Road for half a mile.
I guess that's my train of thought. That's my stream of consciousness from home to half an hour later, where I am now, driving to the first restaurant where I'm going to offer a business card. And I got the anxiety. I hope I took enough Imodium because I'm probably going to... The bathroom's not going to be a very pleasant experience. So I've made all my stops. And this little part of the state, I'm heading home. There's still some other places I want to check out, but at this point on a Saturday, they're busy. I want to be able to talk to people when they're not rushed so I can get more time. And not be an imposition. You're going in there to work, or you're going there to spend money. You're not there to do other things. So, heading home. I would love to get enough gigs so that I don't have to take a full-time night job. And why I keep saying full-time night jobs, I don't know of many part-time night jobs. I really don't. I mean, I've heard of weekend work, night security, and that's not bad. That's not a bad gig, but what I don't want to do is the frickin' police. I really don't. Look, I appreciate that some people get into police work because they're trying to protect their community against crime and bad behavior, and they see that's the way to do it. I get that some people, I learned this from someone who was in the Explorers program. They were training to be a police officer. Oh, shit. Is he going to cross the road? It's turkeys. It's half the flock on one side, half on the other. All right, I'm going to go back on the road. Some people get into police work because they were picked on in high school. They were bullied, beat up, made miserable, and they become police officers to protect the world from those type of people. And they are. A lot of people in high school that torment others go on to be criminals. My own high school principal, when we were talking about, we were talking about why don't you kick more people out of school? Is if we expel all the badly behaved people, then the B&Es in town are going to go up all over the place. He acknowledged that the school was a part-time incarceration for criminals, for the criminally inclined amongst the young population. And it truly was. So I get that some people want to protect their community against criminals like that, and also gives them a sense of security, right? People are less likely to assault you if you're wearing the uniform. And it's true. I get that. I even thought of going into police work after high school, and I had a similar life experience. I got picked on, I was beat up on, I was made miserable, and I wanted to protect my community against people like that. I couldn't do it, though, because there's a lot of things that are statutory violations which are not crimes. They're not They're not crimes. And I understand why if you have low-functioning people, you have to kind of coerce them into not doing self-destructive behaviors. But there's plenty of high-functioning people who can indulge in, various mind-altering substances, and they're perfectly fine. They do it in the right circumstances, they have the right support network, and they don't do anything bad while they're on it. I mean, I'd love to talk about my own experience with hallucinogens. I'll get to that later. But I couldn't enforce laws where the harm is self-inflicted. And I understand there's secondary and tertiary reverberations of self-destructive behavior. I know this. A person gambles their savings away and then they end up bankrupt, or they neglect their kids, or they end up stealing from other people to fund their bad habits, their drug habits, their gambling habits, or they mortgage the house to fund their gambling habits, or whatever. They do stupid things. All right, well, that's their problem. And I know there's knock-on effects of it. There's plenty of people who drink, do drugs, gamble, and they do it responsibly. Now, I'm not going to punish them. I'm not going to facilitate their punishment. No way. It's unjust. Which brings me to the question of two-tiered justice, doesn't it? When we talk about two-tiered justice, it's usually in the context of one group of people, an ethnicity, a race, a religion, whatever gets favorable treatment, and the other one gets unfavorable treatment. But we have to talk about also the functional and the non-functional. And if there's going to be a state, I don't want there to be a state, right? I'm a highly morally conscientious person. I'd love to live amongst morally conscientious people with no state. But if there's going to be a state, maybe you do need a two-tier system of justice. Maybe you need some sort of qualifier that says, look, you're now qualified to go out and do drugs. You're qualified to drink all you want. You're qualified to engage in all these so-called vices, which aren't vices. They're vices for some people, and other people it's a lifestyle enhancement. It's an enhancement of your lifestyle. It's not. It doesn't diminish you. So I don't want to go do weekend security work because I'd have to deal with policemen, and these policemen arrest people for engaging in, self-destructive behaviors. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with policemen. I don't want to be compelled to give evidence. I don't want to be compelled to be a witness. If the presence of a security guard is enough to deter people who are prowling around and they leave, then there's no need for the fucking police. And I have a problem dealing with people who make it their day in, day out way of life to just go around coercing their neighbor. There's something wrong with that. You wonder why so many policemen are corrupt or amoral, which is worse than immoral is amoral. They don't care about right and wrong, just about what they can do. Because those are people suited to police work. I mean, in this world, I don't think you can be a police officer and be a good person. Not the way things are set up now. I don't think so. And I don't hate you for being a police officer, but I think you're in a bad way for being a police officer, and you need to take off the badge and find a better way to help protect your neighbor. That's my opinion, and that's all I have to say about that. Now I'm going to talk about hallucinogens, since I mentioned it. A friend of mine, good friend of mine, guided me through my first experience with shrooms several years ago. And we went to a peaceful place, a clearing. There's like a clearing in the woods. It was grassy and it's sunny, and it was in the late spring, and it was just beautiful. In fact, I think might have been the beginning of summer. But in any case, it was in June. And the strawberries are coming up on the wild strawberry plants, and it was just a really nice setting. And we each had our cookie, which had about, I think he estimated about 1.8 grams of psilocybin in each cookie. So we each had a cookie. So it wasn't a lot, but for my first trip, it was nice. And he guided me through it and reminded me to drink plenty of water and get my vitamin C and get orange juice. And it was like being it felt innocent. It was like being a child. And I'm stuck here at an improvised traffic light that I'm waiting for it because there's bridge construction. I'm waiting for this thing to let me go. Guy on the other end stopped. I'm stopped. I don't know what's going on here. Hello. There we go. Hope we didn't get a green light too. It's going to be a nasty collision. Okay. It was just a beautiful experience. I went through all the feels. You know, I was hugging trees and listening to the creak of the tree, and I was crying, and and tears would go from tears to laughter, just pure joy, and then back into tears again, and then it's such a beautiful experience. And he had a hammock set up, this green nylon hammock, and I climbed into it, and I was a bean pod. I'm a bean pod. And I was I was rocking back and forth in my bean pod hammock, and we had and he had these kielbasa type sausages that were stuffed with cheese, and we cooked those up over the fire. And there was this tree that I call it the witch tree because it had this gnarled looking finger pointing down at me. And I started arguing with the tree, like, "Don't you scold me." I forget exactly what I said, but I call it the witch tree. And it was the most beautiful experience, and it really helped. It helped me work through some emotional shit that was buried in there. And I don't know exactly what it was, but it was definitely therapeutic. And from that point on, like, even though I wasn't actively using the mushrooms, I just had this greater appreciation for trees. I see why the tree huggers hug trees. I really do. I really do. And there's only once that I used it recreationally. When I mean recreationally, like outside of a particular specific setting for therapeutic purposes. And it was not a very good experience. I was partying with some friends and plenty of drugs going around. And so I'm like, "Hey, you got some shrooms here?" I'm like, "All right." I had some, and between that and I just microdosed. I had like a quarter tab of LSD, but between the two of those, it wasn't a very good experience. I ended up crying too much and feeling like a fool, feeling like a retard, and just hating myself. I was ashamed of myself, and I still am to this day. I'm never going to use shrooms recreationally ever again. I'm not doing it. Doesn't mean I won't use them therapeutically. I distinguish between the two. I think, and this is just my personal opinion, you do what you want, magic mushrooms, it's for healing. So at a later date, I went back to that place, and I did mushrooms again. And I went through the experience. I was, you never catch the dragon. It's never the same. I did this in November, and it was like ice on the ground. It was cold, and I had a campfire. And there was a guy I knew who hunted in those grounds around there. He came by while I was tripping on the shrooms, and we had a little conversation. I explained, like, I'm not fully here right now, my friend. I'm tripping. And so we sat down. We talked a little bit about this and that. And I redosed a little bit after he left, went on his way looking for his deer. And that was therapeutic as well. More tree hugging, more thoughts, more feels. And then I had a couple of friends come out to visit me, and as I was coming down off it, and they sat with me and we talked for a bit. And after that, the only other time I did it, I ate. I had 4 grams in a garden setting, in a summertime garden setting. I was debating whether or not to leave my job to go to another job. That was quite an experience. And it was very intense. Like going into the high was terrifying. And for the one and only time that shrooms made me nauseous, I was nauseated, but I remember I was trying to gag it up, like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. It was in there. It was digesting, so that was it. I was into it, and I got through that. I got through it, and once I realized, once I was trained, like, look, you change the input, you change the output, and bad feelings can change to good feelings on a dime if you just change what you're doing. Change what you're looking at, change what you're experiencing, and it was just the most beautiful experience. It really was. There's so many things to say about it, but I recall there was these pine cones, these long pine cones. We had a lot of long pine cones on the ground that year, and they were crawling like creatures in like Alice in Wonderland or some sweet cartoon. They were these sweet little pine cone creatures, and they were crawling around the ground, and the plants were dancing, and when the sun went behind a cloud, the plants seemed to frown and bow down. And when the sun came up, they reached up again. And it was so beautiful. And just as I was going into the trip, I had the radio going. I was listening to the Sound of Silence, the version by Disturbed. And that soundtrack just stuck with me. It ran in loops in my head at different times when I was out in the garden. And it was just so beautiful. It really was. And I remember I went inside, and there was a dog, a little dog. The dog usually got on my nerves because he kissed me too much and his tongue is slimy. But the one and only time I just loved getting kisses from him. I got down. He was so sweet. And he looked like a little fuzzy, those woolly bear caterpillars, those black and brown, licking my face. I was petting him, and then went in and out. It wasn't always the caterpillar, but like he was that to me for a little bit. And he was just kissing me, and I loved it, because he just wanted to love me. And I was so sorry. I was always so impatient with him. He just wanted love. So I let him love me all he wanted. And I'm sure my face was slimed up as hell. And I went to the bathroom. In our bathroom, the color scheme and the angle of the walls made one end look much taller than the other, especially while under the influence. And I was like one of those rooms, what was it, from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, when he walked down to one end and it looked like he was getting bigger, but no, the room's getting smaller. It was like that. It was so beautiful, like the angles and the patterns, the dirt on the wall, the micro marks on the wall were more pronounced. It was gritty. I can't describe it. The walls had a gritty color to them. It was very beautiful. And I remember looking in the mirror at myself and being entertained by that. And I used the bathroom. I peed, and I was watching the bubbles, and the bubbles had like little colorful. They were colorful. There was bluish and purple. And maybe I was picking up the reflection of the wall, for the paintings are kind of like pink and purple. and I think I ate some popcorn, and I ended up getting it stuck in my teeth, and it really bothered me. And I think I picked out all the kernels, but I had the sensation, so I went and flossed my teeth. And I remember washing my hands in the soap and water after flossing my teeth, get the plaque off my hands. And I felt like I couldn't get the soap off. Not in a panicky way. I'm like, why do my hands still feel soapy? And it was really amazing experience. I'm like, you know what? This is part of the hallucination. It's okay. Your hands are well rinsed. Just dry them off. And there was, in the kitchen, we had these pans hanging up on like one of those racks, circular racks full of pans. And so like, this might be a hall of mirrors. So I went and stuck my head in there and looked around. Like, I was now conscious within the hallucination. I knew what was going on. I knew this was just a hallucination, but I was appreciating the hallucination. And it was so neat being a little hall of mirror of reflective pans around me. And then I went like, oh, let's try this. I went over to the sink. I filled a cup with warm water and one with cool water, and I put my hand in each. And I swapped them. And like that experience when you're hallucinating, it's just amazing. And we have this den, and there was some cobwebs, hanging cobwebs, and I sat in there, and I was reading the local grocery store paper, and I was using like this posh English accent while reading about what was for sale, and it made me giggle so much. I felt like just this innocent child. Just, I felt joy, like all my anxiety, all the weight that I carry was just gone. I could just be. And I looked up at the cobwebs, hanging cobweb strands, blowing slightly because of the air conditioner, and I was looking at one, and the end started to glow. It had a little face, little nose, a glowing eye, just so cute. It was looking at me, and it was like looking at me. It was so cute. It was so sweet. And then I went to check on my cat. He was sleeping, and I just looked in on him, and I was in like between waves. The intensity of hallucination comes in waves with psilocybin. So I was either between it or somehow it kind of removed me from it. I looked down, and I just loved him so much. And another kitty I let out in our backyard, a little dog yard, and we had a water bowl for them, and I was filling it with water, and the bubbles they had a blue glow. When I was pouring the water, it was really beautiful. And I played outside with the kitty for a while, and then I let her back inside, and I went back to my home in the garden. Now I had a hat, this bucket hat. I wonder if I can reach it here. It's kind of a beige colored bucket hat, and I had a Gatorade, a purple Gatorade, and there were blackberries on some bushes. We were having late blackberries that year. So I had some blackberries, and I had my Gatorade, and the Gatorade glowed. It had a purple glow to it. It had a sheen. Light came out of it. And my hat, when you looked at it, if you just relaxed, it was like a happy slug, kind of crawling around a little bit. It wasn't going anywhere, just sit there, but it looked like it's lifting its head and looking around. And I think slugs are disgusting, but this one was cute and adorable. I was totally aware of where I was. I could be innocent, or as close as an adult can get to innocent, for a little while. And I was getting bitten by mosquitoes sitting out there, and I couldn't bring myself to slap them. I had to gently pick them off me. I put them down in the grass. I put those damn mosquitoes down in the grass, and they just get up and attack me again. I couldn't bring myself to kill them. I couldn't. The only thing I damaged was I ate a few late blackberries, and I ate some dandelion leaves. I like to forage, so I took the familiar and safe and easy foraging options. And that's the only thing I damaged. I couldn't hurt anything. I didn't want to hurt anything. Like opening and shutting doors even, where I might let them slam gently normally. I wouldn't let them slam at all. I had to ease everything open and shut. It was the most beautiful experience. It was therapeutic. Oh, I've got to talk about the writing on the wall. So a few times I came in the house, there was one wall with Tibetan script on it. Now, consciously, I don't recall ever seeing Tibetan script before that in my entire life. Now, I might have seen it in a painting, I might have seen it in a history book, maybe a documentary, but I didn't know the Tibetan alphabet. But on one wall of the house, just one wall, is above our toaster, there was Tibetan script was slowly scrolling up the wall. And I didn't know what it was at first until I did research after the fact. There was one character in particular that was bigger than the others that stood out. And later doing my research, I got an ad on Facebook. Now maybe I got this ad before I had this experience, or maybe it came up because the phone was eavesdropping on me and heard me talking about Tibetan. So there was this Tibetan singing bowl you could get, and it had this character in it. And I think what the character is now, I'd have to do the research. Maybe I'll research it and put it as an overlay to this video. You're slowly scrolling up the wall like a shadow. Shadows of characters. And while I was in the experience, I had a realization that I need to do more chores around the house to help my roommates. And so I tried writing myself a letter. And I'll tell you right now, actually writing letters, actually the act of writing, that part of my brain is either impaired or being obscured with all kinds of other inputs, because it's very difficult for me to write. But I wrote myself a letter telling myself that, it's good for the household, it's good for my roommates, who weren't very much into cleaning, but we had a dog that peed all over the place. So they liked it when I cleaned. They liked it when I mopped the floor. It made everyone happier. It was better for the household. So I tried to make a point that I wasn't very good about it, but I did more than I used to. Mopping the floor and cleaning up after the dogs, so we're not trotting through dried up dog pee. And while I was engaged in that writing process, the Tibetan script showed up on my arms too. And I can't experience that. I can't explain that. I don't know what happened there with that. But when it comes to something to do with literacy, or that part of my mind that dealt with writing, wanted to see Tibetan script. Now, I couldn't write Tibetan. I was writing English alphabet characters, but the Tibetan was there, showing up when I tried to write, which I think is interesting. While under the influence of the psilocybin, that's what was going on.